Katie. Katie.
Katie, vamos, vamos. Ah. Oh. You're scared. Vamos. Vamos.
And there you have it, my dear viewer. The beautiful panorama of Lakeshore, South Etobicoke. Lakeshore being obviously Lakeshore is everything next to the lake. But there is a Lakeshore Boulevard. And I just live on the other side of yonder meadow, what have you. There's some houses over there. Literally a 5-minute walk from where I live. You come out onto the beach. There's a wee trail that comes down there, and I go jogging up there every day. Actually, I go to the end of this pier and then stretch my legs basically over there, just about where those folks are. And then I'll skedoodle all the way up and off into the woods. Etobicoke Creek. There's my wife's beautiful new puppy. And there's my beautiful wife, or ex rather. So now I've been having lots of discussions with folks on Twitter regarding the existence of God, and
Can you open the car again, please?
unfortunately, here you go, babe. Unfortunately, the simplest and most self-evident things to me are beyond the understanding of the average atheist. So I'll say something like, there's order in the universe, and people will say, no, there's no order. How can you say there's no order? This ball is ordered, right? And even if this is man-made, we didn't create the order. We weren't the ones who bestowed properties on rubber and properties that things in a circle, it's hard to explain, but essentially we're not the ones that created the order. We just utilize it. Now, if you look at the tree and say there's no order, you have to be kidding me. There is order. There's a system. We know that if we water it, the tree is going to sprout. The seed's going to sprout. It's going to obviously produce leaves. The leaves have this stuff in it. What is this stuff called? It came up in another speech of mine, and I find it very interesting. Like, it's amazing. It's an amazing universe. Chlorophyll. So the leaves have chlorophyll in them, and everything in the universe exhibits order. And then my whole thing is, order does actually infer design. It's an argument apparently that's been going on for years and years, and atheist people will tell me, well, it's a stupid argument. It's the teleological argument, or teleological argument, or it's the argument from causality, or some such thing. And it's been refuted. And then my whole thing is, well, I haven't seen it refuted anywhere, and I'm not going to go off and read 20 links. Why can't you just tell me in a sentence what the deal is? And that's one of the cool things with Twitter, I guess, in a sense. They've come up with 140 characters, and really it should be enough to express a cogent thought. So I'll put out something like, how can a universe full of purpose have no purpose? And then I had some guy swearing at me, you're such a moron, you're such an idiot. And I try and make nice with these people. Being a religious person, believe it or not, we're told that the Quran says you should return evil with good. So if someone is really mean to you or evil, I guess I was sitting facing the sun. Where did she go off to? Oh, there she is, over there. So if someone is treating you like crap, like shit, then you should try and be nice to that person. You should try and rise above and all this kind of stuff, show compassion. And then the Quran says, if you return evil with goodness, then you'll find the person between whom you and he was enmity, the person between you and whom was enmity, they'll become just like a sincere friend. And I've seen this happen. Like, there's this lady on Twitter called Godless Mum, godlessmum.com. And the first time I went trolling the first time I went trolling and started messing around on her timeline, I guess. You know, I asked some questions, I put out a video, and I said, you know, dear atheist friends, this or that. You know, she attacked me viciously, and a lot of her co-peers attacked me too. But she came round, and now I'll put something out there, and she'll actually favor it. She'll put something out, and I'll say, well, what about this? And like, for instance, she'll say, you know, religious people are evil, and she'll put out some picture to that effect. But, you know, what I'll do is, you know, I'll say something like, not all religious people are evil, and not all evil people are religious, right? So people make this big deal about how religion is the number one reason for people killing one another or something stupid like that. It's absurd. In World War II alone, you had 55 million people bite the bullet, right? Then the only thing that you might say there is, well, Hitler killed most of them. And I was talking to some guy on the GO train yesterday, and he said, well, Hitler was religious. Hitler may have been religious, but I would suggest that Hitler did not declare religious war, per se. Hitler might have been deep religious on a personal basis, but that wasn't his platform. His platform was fascism or Nazism, whatever the hell that is, right? And his platform was, we're going to recreate the fatherland, right? So Hitler may have been religious, but to say that Hitler's religion was what caused him to kill millions of Jews and whatnot, I'd say it would be missing the point. His purpose was to reunite the fatherland, and then obviously the superiority of the Aryan race and all of this kind of nonsense, right? Blonde hair and blue eyes and all this kind of rubbish, and just anti-Semitism. And by the way, Muslims are a Semitic race as well. I just found this out recently. So when people talk about anti-Semitism, it's not just Jews. So I'm rambling here, but the point of this post is, I realize I don't quite know who my audience should be. I mean, atheist people watch my videos, and I'm not sure any of them are impressed with anything I say. Because to them, it seems like, wow, it's a rehashing of the same old thing again and again and again. Argument, you might call it argument from causality, argument from design, teleological argument, and then they'll throw links at me saying, oh, study about the Higgs, or study about inflationary theory, and all these kinds of convoluted things, theories concerning the universe, or basically arguments like straw man argument, or argument from infinite regression, or Pascal's wager. And the whole thing is so stupid, I simply don't understand. I'm going to restate it, because really at the end of the day, it's the only thing that seems apropos. There's nothing else to be said about it. So when we look at this grass, for instance, it grows a certain way. So did the grass decide to grow a certain way, or is it a result of the environment? Either the environment caused the grass to grow and it's evolving constantly. Whatever's going on, there's some order and some structure which is not material. The thing that causes the grass to grow in this way, the laws that it follows, the physical laws of the universe, are beyond materialism. Those laws are what cause things to behave in a certain way. So now, the argument by intelligent design is actually just one part of what I propose as I go on this study, or this quest for the truth, of this quest to essentially put out the most cogent set of arguments refuting atheism, in as much as the most cogent set of arguments that prove the existence of God. First of all, where did everything come from? Second of all, how is it so amazing? When I say it's amazing, I mean it's full of purpose, it's full of design, it follows a specific order, everything happens for a reason. You know, even in the world of human affairs, it's not just materialism and whatnot. In the world of human affairs, you'll see things like what goes around comes around. And you'll see things like whatever happens for a reason. And you'll see things like, if you have faith that you're going to succeed, you can overcome insurmountable odds. Reason and evidence might be telling you that you're going to fail and you're going to fall flat in your face once again, but you can overcome those things through the power of belief and through the power of faith, right? And then there's other questions that pop up. So if you're going to say that anything that's not material is not worthwhile, anything that can't be measured is not worthwhile, then what about the world of, belief and the world of faith in general? When you say to someone, don't worry, it's going to turn out for the best, or don't worry, once again, it was meant to be, or this was not meant to be. Are we allowed to talk at that? Are we allowed to speak like that, Mr. Atheist? So, in order to summarize once again, where did everything come from? And once again, if the universe pops into being, then, hey, little dogling, it's going to lick my hand like crazy. What do you want? Where are you off to now? So this furry little creature, this little bastion of joy and pleasure, it follows, there's another line of thinking that actually comes up in my arguments with atheists. They're like, well, human beings are not that special after all. We share 98% of the genes of primates, and we actually share a whole lot of basically a whole lot of genes with rodents as well, like rats and other vermin, etc. And it's only a 0.0025 or 0.025 or 2.5% difference between me and that dog, let's say, in terms of our genetical makeup. You know what? Putting all that aside, first of all, let me ask you this question. Are there other things that are measurable that may be different between me and the dog that we haven't discovered yet? I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Saying that our genes are there goes a dog into my genes. Saying that our genes are similar doesn't mean anything. I'm talking about outward stuff. And one of the main things is the question of reason. So, would you or would you not agree that this dog follows instinct purely? It's kind of guided by, in a religious sense, it's guided by the divine hand. And from the perspective of science, it just follows, how would you call it? Just instinct. I'm going to say it doesn't have reason, and I know I'm going to run into trouble with atheists. They're going to say, well, dogs are very intelligent, they do this for a certain reason, they do that for a certain reason, blah, 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 for a certain reason. You know what? Why is this dog so intense is my question. No, so instinct, right? Versus reason. Okay, so I get into all kinds of discussions with atheists about the fact that dogs are the same as us, essentially, and we have nothing over dogs. Well, we've got cars, we've got literature, we've got Picasso, we've got Steve Jobs, we've got dreams, we've got imagination, and then people will go to extreme lengths just to try and validate that, dogs do all the same kinds of things. You know what? Once again, to me, if you don't accept that the universe is ordered, then there's nothing to talk about. If you say that we're the same as animals, then there's nothing to talk about. You obviously see things a different way than me. The last of these threefold questions is, where did things come from? And by the way, where did they come from? And wherever they came from is where the laws that govern them came from too, right? Do you understand? The universe didn't just pop into being and just start doing whatever it wanted to do. If a molecule comes into being, it doesn't just follow its own laws and make up its own physical properties and mass and shape and movement and all this kind of stuff. If something is created, I guess at the end of the day, you have to ask the question of creation. There are some people who say, well, things have just been around forever and they're going to continue forever. Well, then you're talking about a self-subsisting, self-sustaining universe, which is the source of everything, and which has been around forever, and that doesn't make sense to me because the universe is not sentient. Why is the universe a certain way? It's been around for forever, so but why is it a certain way? Why do things fall down instead of going up? And you'll be like, well, gravity and science and all this kind of stuff. The whole thing goes round in a circle. If you believe in a universe that exists forever, then to me that's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how can it just have been forever? The last thing is, who's maintaining it? why aren't planets colliding with each other? You're going to be like, oh, it's physical laws and all this kind of stuff. I'll bring that question to bear on your own life, right? Aren't there times in life when you think to yourself, well, you know, everything's going down the tubes and this and that, and you're full of fear and anxiety, but then things ultimately work themselves out. And in the same way in this universe, you know, look at all these beautiful cities, look at all these beautiful countries, look at nature, look at cosmology, look at microorganisms and all this kind of stuff. And basically what you'll see is that there's order that's prevalent everywhere. If it was just a case of randomness and chaos, things wouldn't be this amazing and they wouldn't work out this well. Oh God, any second now the dog's going to see that I'm at its level and it's going to come running towards me like the little beast of destruction that it is. Alright, so we're at 50 minutes. I'll wrap this up. The last thing is this. I want you to understand, if you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. I'm just asking you to treat me like a kid and to try and understand my point of view as I try and understand your point of view. If you say to me, well, the argument by design has been refuted, then would you kindly refute it in a couple of statements? And I'll try and answer your comments and all this kind of stuff. And if you say, well, this thing that you're saying is the argument from teleology or causology or something, well, I do try and read a lot of the links and comments that I get. I can't read everything. Obviously, I can't. One link leads to another and so on and so forth. But I looked up the Higgs boson, whatever the hell it is, the other day. Somebody said you should research this. And to me, it very much seems similar to the argument that we apply to God. Now, the Higgs boson, whatever the hell it is, by itself doesn't, you can't measure it, right? Look at this nastiness. Why would you just leave this lying around instead of finding a garbage can to put it in, right? So the Higgs thing by itself is basically, they haven't been able to measure it directly. However, they know it exists due to its effect on other things. Essentially is one way of putting it. So once again, if there's a universe, who created it? Where did it come from? Why does it follow certain laws and all this kind of stuff? And then at the same time, where did it come from? Why does it follow certain laws? How is it being maintained? So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to preach Islam or any religion like that. I'm simply interested in the question of God. Because then people will go down the path of, oh, well, death for apostasy. I don't know anything about death for apostasy. And then they'll be like, oh, well, why do you cover women up? And I'll be like, why do nuns wear veils? And why do you have death for... You believe in death for treason. That's just simply a bunch of people who've come up with some rules, and you're willing to give your life over that stuff. So how's that different from me saying, well, there's a beautiful, benign creator of the universe, and I should do what he says? And then you'll say, like, well, religion causes war. Let me tell you something. Any person that essentially tells you to be unjust is not being religious. Any person that doesn't believe in kindness and compassion and putting other people first and overcoming evil with good, those are all the things that religion are. The rest of it is somebody who's misconstrued something and they call it religion. And by the way, you do not need to be religious in order to be evil. You do not need to be religious like these kids in Calgary. They tortured some 10-year-old girl to death. What the hell is going on with that? Or this guy in Vancouver who butchered like 20, 30 women. Or this guy sitting on a bus in Edmonton. I guess you'd say he has a mental illness, but he wasn't religious. You know, this whole notion of God told me to do it. You see less of that. It's a rarity. And unfortunately, in the world of human evil, there's just evil people. And they'll use any old excuse. Now, I will admit, as a Muslim, that terrorists and these psychopathic murderers and Osama bin Laden and the Taliban and Zawahiri, may he burn in hell, and ISIS and ISIL, all these guys are some of the worst kinds of people, if not the worst. The Quran says it, in fact, that these guys are Sharr al-Bariya, they're the worst of creatures. And what guys are those guys? Those guys are those people who take the guise of religion and they apply it to themselves in order to achieve power and dominance and status and riches and worldly gain. There's a whole chapter about this, dear viewer, called The Hypocrites. So in Islam you have, obviously being a Muslim, which is different from being a believer. And a believer could be Christian or Jewish, by the way, or anybody, by the way. And in fact, a believer is superior to a Muslim. So if you have a person who says La ilaha illallah, there's no God except one God with a capital G, then he's essentially understood that there is one cogent force that's guiding everything from within to without. On the other hand, when you submit to that force and let that force guide your heart, then you become a believer, and a believer could be anyone. So, I mean, I'm going to leave it at that. Standing at the edge of Lake Ontario, and I guess I got to go find the wife element. And last but not least, one of my favorite games, Find CN Tower. So if you do have any comments or questions, or you just want to fight me, go right ahead. I'd love to hear from you. And otherwise, over and out for now.